Hello and welcome to Hughes of the World, in which I, Graham Hughes, take you on a trip, a virtual trip, not even a virtual trip. I just talk about countries around the world because I've been to all of them. I'm the only person to have visited every country in the world without flying, I think. But I'm definitely the first to have been to every country in the world without flying. I'm in the Guinness Book of Records and everything. Anyway, if you were here last week, great, we talked about Afghanistan. So this week we're going to talk about the country of Albania. Yay, Albania. I bet loads of people are tuning in because they want to hear about Albania. Now, what would be more fun when I'm doing countries that maybe I want to make fun of a little bit more? I might like Australia. I guess it would be more comedy, but I'm going to be quite straightforward with Albania because it's a tried and tested story, really. Albania. It's we know where we are with Albania, and where we are is that it's kind of like the Calamity James of countries. Bless it. It seemed to make a lot. Well, you can't really talk about countries as people, can you? You can't. Can you do that? That's a bit naughty. It's kind of like the people in charge. If they had one way to go or the other, they always seem to pick the worst possible choice as time went by. So Thomas Page has turned up. Hello, Thomas. God, it's really good to hear from you. Glad I'm not just broadcasting into the void. There's people getting in touch with me going, but Graham, I just want to hear you rant about things. This is rubbish. And I'm like, well, this is what I used to do. I used to talk about travel and countries and geopolitics. Well, I still talk about geopolitics, but it all used to fascinate me. Alexi Sales, Albanian Beaujolais, is that? From Chubai. Alex Monk says, good evening, Graham. Looking forward to Hughes of the World. I do enjoy your political videos, but it was your travel video that got me hooked. Quick question, have you read any of the Tim Marshall books? No, I've read Tim Butcher, the Travelling Up the Congo River, Blood River. And Tim Marshall? I don't think so. Looks around. No. I just realised I am going to be my normal books. I usually have a copy of Lonely Planet with me, but I've left it upstairs and I can't be bothered getting it now. So, as I was saying, Albania. The second alphabetically of all the countries in the world, at least until Abkhazia becomes an actual country in its own right. One day. It's supposed to be that, by the way. It's not supposed to be part of Russia, but it's a part of Russia. It's got its own flag, though. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the geography of Albania. And no, Graham, that's the flag. Right, okay, so, I'm saying because I was hoping that my map would appear. Oh, there it is. Much apologies, my flag wasn't there. There it is. Look at that lovely flag. So I'm going to use OpenStreetMap because it seems to be a better call than Google. It's got a clearer way of showing things. It's not as messy. I'm sure there's a way of setting Google Maps so it's not as messy, but I don't know. Prisoner of Geography. Yes, Alex, I've heard of him. Yes, I haven't read that, but I do want to read it because I'm quite interested in. I was talking about that last week when we were talking about Afghanistan. It is a prisoner of geography, and in some ways, Albania has suffered a similar fate because it's not like the United Kingdom here where you're on the edge of everything. Iceland, it's over there, who cares? But if you look here and then you look at all the areas, all the places around this little place here, Albania, in the middle of the map, you've got Greece, you've got Macedonia, you've got Kosovo, you've got Montenegro, you've got Serbia, you've got Bosnia, you've got Italy. You've got Croatia, arguably. Look, you've got a lot of places that Albania is very close to. Don't forget when the Greeks had their empire, which actually extended into what's now a lot of Albania, and the Romans had their empire, and the Venetians had their empire. They all congregated around here a lot. And so as a consequence, you ended up with a lot of different countries basically invading, annexing. I mean, have a look at this border here. If we go down, you can't really see the border now. That's rubbish. Oh, look at this border. So the south here, this is Greece. This border is, this country is Albania. Look how much of the coastline is just swallowed up by Greece. And then you look at the top of Albania, plucky little Albania, and you'll see the same thing happens with its border here in Podgorica, where it's the way that it's divvied up between it and Montenegro. What's it called? Montenegro, yeah, is a little bit unfair. It's a little bit unfair. It's sort of, they take the lion's share of the coastline, and that happens again with its borders in Macedonia here. You can see these big lakes. Basically, Macedonia gets, look at that, Northern Macedonia gets the lion's share there of the lake, and poor old Albania gets a minority of it. But it just seems to be the story. The same old story with Albania. It's a bit like that. And but I've been to Albania a few times. I haven't stayed very long, I have to admit. But I've been there 3 times now. And I've always enjoyed it. The people there are really, really lovely. There's only one major highway. Yes, indeed. Happier times for Albania after Enver Hoxha. Well, I was going to talk about this. So that was the geography. That's where it is. It's in the middle of everything. Like Afghanistan, and as a consequence of being in the middle of everything, like Afghanistan, it was the Illyrians, I think they were called, the first people who lived there, who I think they're related to the guy who played Traegard in Nightmare, who was in Game of Thrones in the first season. And then the Greeks came. There were some Greek colonies there. The Romans, I'll get the date here. It's 167 BC. The Romans turned up, basically conquered, as they did the known world at the time. And Serbia turned up a good few centuries later in 1344. But Serbia only had control of Albania for not very long until it fell to the Turks. Serbia fell to the Turks. And plucky little Albania, I'm going to give it its due, right? As a country, it's got quite a proud history of fending off these barbarians, these hordes who wanted to come and take them over all the time. But they put up a fight for about 100 years. 100 years against the Ottoman Empire. That's pretty impressive. But then the Ottoman Empire finally overtook them in 1479, and we had 400 years of Ottoman rule in what's now Albania. They had the Proclamation of Independence in 1912, which is great because, we can have our own country now. And then a year later, Serbia said, nice Kosovo you got there, mate, and basically annexed it. Well, they ceded it. They ceded it to Serbia. And it was a third. It was 1/3 of Albania went to Serbia and became what we now know as Kosovo, which I might come to later. Don't like talking about Kosovo too much in a video that's not about Kosovo, because I'll get any Serbians watching this will go apeshit at me going, you can't talk about Kosovo, it's Serbian, even though it hasn't been Serbian for years. But moving swiftly on. So they lost a third of their land to Serbia, and then World War I came along. Benign, is it benign? We're talking about Albania today. I've got it written here. I should lift that up, actually. I should move that little thing up so it's easier to read. I forgot that my table was going to be there. Let's have a look. Albania. See, I'll have to move up the flag as well. I don't know if this will happen in real time. It shouldn't do. No, it won't. So just bear with me while I move things. There you go, boss. See, just move that. Just move that logo there and the flag. Good, that wasn't it? Anyway, so World War II. No, World War I first. Getting ahead of myself. But World War Part 1, Episode 1. It was, let me get this right, it was occupied by Greece, then Serbia, then France, then Italy, and then Austria-Hungary. Well, in the space of 4 years. Anyway, they had a republic, and that ended in the end of the 20s when the brilliantly named King Zogu came to power. And as King Zog the First, Zog, what a great name. You know, is he a good guy? I don't know. But he chummied up with Mussolini, so I don't think he was a good guy. So King Zog is just a great name for someone who's a bit of a villain. Anyway, he chummied up to Mussolini. And when I talked earlier about Albania making the wrong decisions a lot of the time, they're not them, the leaders. Yeah, so about 10 years later, Mussolini invaded. The Italians invaded poor old Albania, and fighting began. And they kept fighting, and they kept fighting, and they kept fighting. Zog, by the way, or Zogu, he fled to Britain with loads of gold that he had stolen from Albania's treasury. And do you know what he did with it? He rented himself an entire floor of the Ritz Hotel in London, owned by the Barclay brothers, who own the Telegraph. And I hate them. Anyway, but so that's what he did. So they didn't have a king. They were at war. They managed to fend off the Italians to some extent, and then they had to fend off the Germans. And again, to give Albania its due, seriously, it was the only Eastern country, I think, that didn't require the direct assistance of Soviet troops. Only Eastern European country. That's really impressive. It's like when you talk about Malta. Malta's flag has a cross on it, and it's not a Maltese cross. There is a Maltese cross on the flag of Wallis and Futuna Islands in the South Pacific, but on the flag of Malta, there is a cross, and it's the cross of St. George that was awarded to the nation for valor during the war because it was the only only occupied island in the Mediterranean that never got occupied by the Germans. Anyway, moving swiftly on. I have an Ottoman. I keep my blankets in it. Very good, Shabai. I like what you've done there. And then, we'll talk a little bit about Hoxha. Hoxha, who mentioned Hoxha before? Gaz. All right, Gaz. Hoxha was the leader during the war. He was the leader of the Communist Party, and he took power in 1946 and kept his iron grip on power until his death in 1985. And in that time, first of all, he chummied up to Yugoslavia. That didn't go so well. This is quite a brutal form of communism, by the way. It wasn't a nice, friendly form of communism like you might find in the Indian state of Kerala. No, this was pretty brutal and oppressive. I'll come to this in a moment. But yeah, he... What's this? Says Jingo Chess. This is Hughes of the World. This is me talking about different countries around the world each week in alphabetical order. So last week I did Afghanistan, and this week I'm doing Albania. So I've talked a little bit about the geography, need to talk about that some more. But I've talked a lot. I'm talking about the history now of Albania. Yes, he did have an obsession with nuclear bunkers. No, they're not actually nuclear. They're not actually nuclear bunkers. They're for shooting a gun out of. They're not for hiding from a nuclear bomb. But they look like igloos. I'll come to them. I'm nearly there. So, Hoxha broke off ties just 2 years later after he became president to, or beloved leader or chairman of the Communist Party or whatever it was called. He was the leader of Albania. And 2 years later, cut off ties with Yugoslavia, told them to bugger off, and chummied up to Stalinist Russia. Yay! So basically the Bezzy mates with Russia. Now, it's quite clever this actually, because he got loads of money, or Albania got loads of money from the Yugoslavians, and then they got loads of money from the Russians for a bit. And then in 1960, he broke off ties with the Russians and chummied up to the Chinese. And I think at the time, Albania was the only country in the world that had diplomatic relations with the Chinese. Isn't that mad? Like, they're 6,000 kilometers from each other, and they had diplomatic ties, and it's this little tiny bit of Europe, and massive China, obviously. But at the time, China was ruled by Mao Zedong, one of the worst dictators of the 20th century, and I'll fight anyone who says otherwise. And taking a leaf out of Mao Zedong's book, they did have a cultural revolution. It was less brutal than the Chinese Cultural Revolution, but they had their own Cultural Revolution in 1966, 1967 in Albania, where Western literature was banned and the circulation of it was banned, and they banned religion outright. Now, I think religion had sort of there'd been no state religion since 1945, so Albania's got some kind of argument to say it was the first atheist state. However, people say this about Stalinist Russia and stuff like that. And say, oh, look what the atheists did. Weren't they really bad? But they weren't really atheists, because they still had a belief system based on utter nonsense, which was, dear leader, communism is a great way of running the place, which it isn't. I mean, it seems like a good idea if you don't study it, you don't look at it and go, hang on. But it's not a really good idea. And they had this Cultural Revolution. In 1968, they pulled out of the Warsaw Pact. and decided to go it alone. Going alone. So they had a bit of more money from China. And what Hoxha did, he spent all this money. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, by the way. It's Hoxha, so I think it's Hoxha. Hoxha. Hoxha is read... Oh, I'm saying it wrong. I'm sorry. Hoxha is read Hodja. Hoxha sounds weird. Okay, Hodja. So anyway, Hodja the Dodger. I'll remember it that way. Hodja until 19... It's great having this thing here, because it corrects me as I go. It's like, you're not quite right there, Graham. Sort it out. So, 1960, where are we? 1968, pulled out the Warsaw Pact. And he started building these bloody bunkers everywhere. Apparently, there's 750,000 bunkers. And it's a great little game to play while you're traveling through Albania, is bunker watch, just spotting the bunkers as you go along. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, first one to spot a bunker wins a prize. You'll have a lot of prizes to give out. They're all over the country. And the idea is they're all over the beaches. They're all over the borders with the neighbouring countries. It's surrounded by what's now Montenegro and Kosovo and North Macedonia and Greece. Obviously they felt very threatened. They chummied up to some people who had then betrayed them, or they felt like they'd been betrayed. And so this rattled on until, 1985, when Hodja died. In the north of Albania, they have a blood feud as justice system. So families are still killing each other because someone started it one day. That's pretty bad. I don't think that's too common. I think it's kind of like, wife burning in India. I'm sure it still goes on in some places, but it's not as mainstream as Western commentators would like to sometimes pretend, to make them look, a little bit backwards, right? You look a bit, I don't know. You don't pronounce Mao's name correctly either. Bloody hell. Everyone's a critic. You could be a geography teacher. No, I couldn't, Gaz, because I can't pronounce anything correctly. I'm from Liverpool. I can't even pronounce English correctly. So, I pronounce Nigel Farage as Nigel Farage. So, what can I say? Anyway, so I want to point out as well, there's a really good book called On the Beach by Neville Shute, right? And it's all about the end of the world. It's all about, basically, it's set in Australia, and there's been a nuclear conflict, and the radiation clouds are slowly making their way down to Australia, and everyone in the Northern Hemisphere is dead, and everyone in the Southern Hemisphere is about to die because of the ionization of the radiation of the whatever. Everyone's going to die. And the battle starts, the war, the short war they call it, because it only lasts 7 days because everyone blows each other up, starts in Albania. So there you go. Claim to fame there, Albania. Anyway, so these bunkers are everywhere, little igloos. And after Hoxha died, they started opening up a little bit. And this is actually before the sort of fall of the communist system. A few years later, they started opening up to tourists. Up to that point, it was like completely off limits. Like, people just didn't go there. It wasn't part of some kind of hippie trail. It was just, there's Albania. Let's not go there. There's nothing to see, which is a shame because it's a beautiful country, as I'll come to. I mean, it's very mountainous. Mountains go down into the beaches. I mean, it's a dramatic country. It's a really good-looking country, apart from all the nuclear bunkers everywhere. Not nuclear, just concrete bunkers. They're little, small concrete bunkers for about 3 people to hide in. They're not very big. Gluten-free, what's topic on tonight? We're talking about Albania. I want to discover a composer from every country. Oh, that's a good quest. A composer from every country. I think what you might want to do is find a musician from every country. I think that would be an easier task, and also it would introduce you to the music that you would be introduced if you found a composer in each country. But yeah, definitely if you found a musician, that'd be brilliant. Albania better off on the USSR? Well, yeah, arguably. Well, I'll come to this. So basically, 1991, it opens up, end of communism. And from that point on, you didn't have to get your hair cut at the border. And this is a true story, right? Back in the day, like in the 1980s, if you wanted to go to Albania and you turned up, like I sort of travelled with a big beard and long hair, they would actually sit you down. They had border barbers, and they would cut your hair and shave your beard before you were allowed into the country. This is a true story. And I felt like they'd slap you on the back of the neck when you were done and give you a blessing or something. But yeah, kind of crazy. Gaz Riley's done it with punk bands. Oh my God. That sounds awesome. I want to see an I Kiribati punk band. That'll be awesome. Are Albania descendants of Ottomans? No, Albanians are descendants of the Illyrians. I think I'm probably saying that wrong as well. But the Illyrians were there first, and they are the true ethnic Albanians who, yeah. I don't know, because every country has been fought over and migrants have moved in and migrants have moved out. And yeah. So it's a bit difficult to say who the true people are, but they were under the cosh, is that the right word? Under the rule of the Ottomans for many, many years. But they were kind of left behind. I don't think they were kind of like, they didn't feel like they were integral to the Ottoman Empire. They were sort of ignored and left to their own devices. From what I can gather, I don't know, I wasn't there. Anyway, so Mi Shandat, I'm probably saying that wrong. Mi Shadat is what they say. They slap you on the back of the neck and say, Mi Shadat, after they give you a haircut. So when it opened up, right, this is brilliant as well. So there were 3 million people living in Albania. Guess how many cars there were? I'm sure someone will know this. Well, 3,000 in the whole country. Why? Because you were only allowed a car if you were a party official. Everyone else had to walk or take a donkey or something. Metal was big in Albania, yeah. Albania is one of the oldest European languages. I was going to come to that, Adrian. That is brilliant. That is a great little fact. So Albanian doesn't seem to be related to the Romantic languages, the Germanic languages, or the Slavic languages. It seems to, in the whole of the Indo-Eurasian or Indo-European languages, it seems to be quite unique. A bit like Finnish. I think Finnish is kind of unique as well. But yeah, and Mother Teresa was born there. Now, if you spoke to Christopher Hitchens before he died, he didn't have a very nice thing to say about. He didn't have a good thing to say about Mother Teresa. He didn't like her very much. I don't know. Some people just rub people up the wrong way. What can I say? But yeah, he thought that she encouraged people to be like she encouraged poverty because she felt it was being closer to God was being impoverished, whereas he sort of felt like actually when you've got poor people, you want to stop them being poor, and then they don't need to struggle their entire lives and go hungry and things. Fair enough. All I knew was about Norman wisdom. Norman wisdom's very popular in Albania as well, which is a little crazy factoid as well. A bit like Welsh then, yeah. Well, Welsh is more like Old English, isn't it? Like proper Old English Welshes. I take it you are Albanian. Anarchy in Albania. How do you pronounce Teresa Coffee? I thought it was Therese, like Terry, with an AZ, but she says otherwise. I don't know, Harry. Look, I'm the worst person to ask how to pronounce things. I'm really crap at it. If there's an option, I'll get it. I'll go for the wrong one. And I just end up looking like a tit. Although there are some that I just, I know and I can't forget because I've learnt them by rote. But like Kiribati, even though it's written Kiribati, the country, it's pronounced Kiribati because they put TI for S. Anyway, so yeah, in the mid-90s, so the place opened up, and then in the mid-90s, there were these private pyramid schemes, right? And so it was like, quick, we're not communist anymore, we're capitalists, and we're going to be all capitalist. And what do capitalists do? I don't know, they invest in things, so let's invest in these pyramid schemes. And obviously pyramid schemes are bollocks, and unfortunately in 1996, 70% of the Albanian population lost their savings. Many people lost their life. So there was violent uprisings over this. I mean, it was a big deal. It kind of bounced back by the early 2000s. By 2002, it was sort of back on an even keel. And then in 2011, it got its gold back. It was only about 6.5 million pounds worth of gold. But in 1946, a British ship was blown up by a mine near the Straits of Corfu or somewhere, and Albania got the blame for it. So Britain, France, and the US had this gold that was supposed to be returned to Albania because it was Albanian. And they said, we're keeping your gold until you admit responsibility for killing these 44 sailors. And Albania said, no, it wasn't us. And that went on for a very, 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 very long time. And then I think that's like 19 years of negotiations finally came to an end in 2011 when they got the gold back. By then it wasn't worth very much, but I've travelled a bit in Albania. Languages related to Romanian. Ooh, well, that's interesting. Okay. Okay. Are you broadcasting from the Royal Borough of West Derby from Gluten Free? No, I'm in Durham at the moment. No, the Royal Borough of West Derby, west of the Deer Park. West Derby's in Liverpool, by the way, and it's not as posh as it sounds. In Albania, you always have to earn a ton of dosh. There's a certain herb rest of Europe like to smoke. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Well, Bayerberg's tapping on something there, which is about 50% of the population. It might have gone down, but I don't know, when I was there, I think it was 50% of the population was still working in agriculture. So it was a huge thing. Huge tobacco farmers. They farm a lot of tobacco. And obviously, Bayerberg is pushing me towards other things that you can grow and smoke, which I wouldn't know about because I'm very innocent. We travel around Albania. When I went there, again, it was, God, how many years ago? Well, actually, I popped back in there a few years ago when I did my Eurodyssey expedition, when I tried to go to every country in Europe in 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks, for a new Guinness World Record. And I included Turkey and Cyprus on my list of countries that I visited. And I didn't need to, apparently, because Guinness World Record said they weren't actually European countries. So I didn't get the record. But yeah, I did go through then. But before then, I went there in 2009. And before then, I went there in 2007, I think, or so. Yeah, 2007. But yeah, there was a lot of people working in agriculture. There were a lot of people... there were a lot of Mercedes. And also, if you want to get around... normally, most sort of European countries have the bus timetable system, or the train. Oh, no, the trains do run by a timetable, but the bus system in Albania when I was there was great. It was you turn up, and when the thing is full, you go, which is the West African way of doing things, and I quite like it because it just adds this extra dimension of randomness to your life. And if you're in a big hurry, you can buy more than one seat, which is really good because you can't do that on a scheduled bus. You can't go, listen, I really need to go. Oh, by the way, the only reason why I didn't get the Guinness World Record, we were delayed going through the Channel Tunnel into the UK, and because I need to get over to Ireland, so tick that one off the list. I also went up to Scotland, which I apparently didn't need to do, but come on, Scotland's going to be independent very soon. Whatever. And we came on the bus, and we got the bus from Brussels, and we got it to London, and basically it took so many hours to get to the outskirts of London, and then trying to get into the middle of London, because London has its bus terminal in the middle of London, which is the most stupid thing you could possibly imagine. All other big cities, like Bangkok and Mexico City and places like that, they generally have a northern bus station for the buses going north, and the southern bus station for the buses going south. So they have to go into the actual city centre of the city. In London, buses have to drive down bloody Oxford Street. What? That's drive down Oxford Street. That's like, you kidding me, aren't you? Why? Well, because, we can't have a bus station at, I don't know, Gatwick. I mean, you can get off there, and then you can just get the train in, or we can have one at Brent Cross in the north, or we can have one in Heathrow in the west. Who's with me here on this? Every time Sadiq Khan is on the radio, and I used to do this when Boris Johnson was mayor, I'll call up and say, look, I want to talk to the mayor about the buses, because no one ever does that. They moan about the trains, but at the end of the day, there's 12 national and yeah, there's obviously an international one, but the national train stations, there's 12 of them in London. 12 bloody national trains, and there's only one bus station. Anyway, so we were coming in, and I'm begging this guy to get off this bus. I'm like, please, can we get off? No, I can't. Insurance can't let you off, because also they'll think that this is a bus service, like it's competing with TfL, and there's all these kind of rules and all that. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at me, and I'm thinking, if I can just get off this bus, then I can get my way to Euston on the underground. It'll be way quicker than sitting in this traffic jam. So in the end, I said to the driver, listen, mate, what happens if I cause a fuss? What happens if I'm drunk and disorderly? He says, I can throw you off the bus then. So I turned to everyone on the bus and went, am I being drunk and disorderly? And everyone's like, yeah, you are. And he went, all right, then open the door and let me off. I still miss the train though. It's like one of them when you're running down to Euston Station, and you get to the ramp and you get to the bottom of the ramp, and then the woman's like, have you got a ticket? I'm like, I'll buy one on the train. I'll buy one. I've got it on my phone. And they're like, no, we need to check it. Oh, okay, then you go. And just as you go in, they close the door, and then the train sits there. It sits there for a couple of minutes because they close the door a couple of minutes before the bloody train leaves. So you're there looking at your train, and I went, and after that, I still did it faster than anyone else has done it because no one's done it. But yeah, that was my downfall. And after that, it was like dominoes because I missed all my connections going forward to put an extra day on my travels. Anyway, got it off the beaten track there. I was supposed to be talking about Albania. I'll jump back into your messages. I never understand why Victoria Station still exists. Well, Chubai, it was built in the 1930s in the middle of London for buses in the 1930s because, hey, it's 90 years later. Why change it? Friend of mine came from Albania and studied here in Germany. After 2.5 years, says he couldn't understand his childhood friends from there anymore. There was so much animosity against Serbia. Yeah, that's balkanization. I mean, the level of sort of vitriol that you hear against close neighbours in that area, it is disheartening. But I can't pretend that Britain is like so much better than that, given recent events. Tribal attitude against the neighbours. He acknowledged that he once had the same attitude too, but his time in Germany changed that. Well, that's good. But yeah, people, it's very easy to be tribal. It's very easy just to see the other people as the out people, and they're the out group and you're the in group, and politicians will use this to make loads of money. I'm going off into Hughes round territory there. Politicians are shit. and on language theme, David Crystal Linguist project, we are to lose 3,000 languages in the next 100 years, roughly half of what we had now. That's some buddy. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I put an application into Radio 4 because they were doing a thing where they gave a few £1,000s to someone who wanted to do a radio project somewhere, a travel related radio project. It was basically pitch me your idea. So I wrote to them saying, Papua New Guinea has more languages than the rest of the world put together. I want to go over there with a microphone and go to each village in turn and sit down with the village elders and get them to tell stories in their local language. And we get it translated, and then we have a version in Pidgin, a Tok Pisin, the local lingua franca, and English, and any other language then. But yeah, they never got back to me, unfortunately. But I really feel like that's something that should be preserved. Languages, we're losing them, and this is another thing where it's kind of like the in group and the out group, isn't it? It's trying to. You try and get people into your group by changing their language. And one of the interesting things that someone said to me, I don't know, you got to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, but it was about I think it was Sri Lanka. It was either Sri Lanka or Kerala. It's down in southern India, southern subcontinent, and I think it was maybe Pondicherry or somewhere, but basically it was a city that the Portuguese inhabited and the Dutch inhabited and the French inhabited, and they all got kicked out, and the only ones who ended up staying were the English. And as it was explained to me, it was because the English were the only ones who let the local people keep their own religion. They encouraged people to convert to Christianity, whereas the French were very much, you have to convert to Catholicism or we'll kill you. And that's why the British ended up staying relatively, they shouldn't have done, but that's not the point. The point is that if you are going to mess in other people's countries, trying to turn them into little English people or little French people or little, Genghis Khan's Mongolian people, people tend to push against that, because when your possessions are taken from you, when your home is burnt down, when your family are murdered, kind of all that you got left is your culture. And this is why things like Trump and Brexit are so pernicious, because they tap into that. They tap into your to people's culture, and Trump becomes a culture in his own right with his followers. Brexit has become a culture. It has become a very nasty, inward-looking culture. But I keep saying it's not just an economic thing. It's not just a social thing. It is actually a cultural thing that we're looking at here, where we seem to have been overrun by people who aren't very nice. But yeah, anyway, if you know the shortcuts, I walk everywhere in London. It's quicker and cheaper. Yeah, Gaz, I walk everywhere in London as well, but I was on the clock because I was trying to set a new Guinness World Record. But when Pokemon Go came out, London was the best place in the world. It seriously was. You just walk around London all day and you'd meet people at Pokestops and you'd be like, hello. And they'll be like, hello, are you fighting? Yeah, okay. And you'd all catch a Pokemon together. It was great. Could have given him a fiver. Geographic imperative. Last Manx speaker died in 1968. And there's something the British did, well, the English did around the United Kingdom. Obviously, Scots language, they tried to stamp that out in Scotland. Welsh, it was banned from being taught in schools, and it was only because the villagers kept it going that it remained as a language. Cornish, again, the English tried to stamp it out. And we're seeing something very similar going on at the moment in places like Tibet, which has been the Han Chinese. There's lots and lots of Han Chinese now living in Tibet, and it's this idea of sort of muscling out their culture and replacing it with mainstream Chinese culture rather than Tibetan culture, which is very different. Adrian Flynn says, I met some drunken Albanian in Verona, Italy, very friendly. Apparently a friend of theirs in a small village had slaughtered a pig, and they were celebrating that. An old tradition that hasn't died out yet. Well, it's funny that, I mean, if you hit a pig while you're driving in Papua New Guinea, you've got to get out of there really quickly because they take their pigs very seriously. And if you run over a pig, you're in for a beating. There's a few other countries that are a bit like that. I think Nepal as well. If you injure an animal in Nepal, they'll go ape shit. So you best just legging it, or just not driving like a maniac, I guess. Everyone claims the land they occupied at their height. Yeah, indeed. Chobai says, Radio 4 project, have a word with yourself. You have the wrong school tie. Yeah. Well, they said, what do you want to do? That's sort of an audio thing. And I just thought, Papua New Guinea? Just Papua New Guinea? I'll go back in a flash. I had an amazing time there. Although, I was only there for a few weeks and they did manage to have a plane crash, an earthquake, a tsunami, a riot and a massacre. But, apart from that, it was great. I enjoy myself. All these Australians saying, don't go to Papua New Guinea, it's dangerous. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll see how it goes. And I went there and it was all right. Are you going to travel again, Liam? Yes, I hope so. Once coronavirus is over, once COVID is over, I've got all these mad schemes. I want to drive around the world in an electric car. I want to drive around Africa in an electric car. Come on, that's way more interesting than that Charlie Borman, whatever his name is, going on a motorbike. I mean, Ewan McGregor's all right, but I think. I imagine just having to wait in the middle of a desert and to your solar panels charge your car up again. And it takes 3 days, and you're like, I need to get out of here. That'd be fun. Famous Albanian writers, Ismail Kader. Wife is also a big fan, so I had to go and visit his city. Oh God, you're testing me here, aren't you? Hero Casa and his house. It's a great city, by the way. Here in Belgium, this is from NMTB 1972. Here in Belgium, the local dialect can change every 5 to 10 kilometers or so. Dialects get lost because people don't marry locals anymore. Well, that's a funny thing about British English, is that there are so many local dialects and so many local accents, and the Liverpool accent is very, very different from the accents either way. If you go to Manchester, it's a very different accent. You go to Wales, it's a very different accent. I mean, Wales is a different language. Wales is a different language, but yeah, it's something that is quite sort of peculiar to the UK. And if you go to America, you can usually tell if someone's from Boston, New York, New Jersey. They tend to talk more nasally, whereas obviously a southern drawl is very, very obvious to most non-Americans. And then you got the sort of the California sort of back of the throat, more slow delivered way of speaking. But apart from that, and then you got the Montana, not the Montana, is it the Montana accent or the sort of North Dakotan accent, which is like, hulu, 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 which I always find hilarious. If you ever watch the first season of Fargo, Bilbo Baggins does a really good sort of North Dakotan, I don't know, the North States of America accent. Might be Montana. The penal laws in Ireland banned Catholics from receiving any education. Yeah. When I get to Ireland on this, I'm going to just be ripping the British a new one. So, Simon says, I love the Odyssey. I did too. I want to do it again. Stupid bloody Brexit. Stupid bloody... You can't take ham sandwiches into the EU now. Great. Stupid bloody COVID. Stupid Trump. Stupid everything. Albanian cognac. What's the drink over there? Is it raki? Raki. I think I had some raki while I was there. Raki is pretty powerful stuff. It tastes like drain cleaner. It really does. But I guess it does the trick. It does the trick. Say I was warned not to drink it if it didn't come out of a bottle. You know, when I saw the bottle getting opened, it was a glass bottle. So I was warned not to drink it because I might go blind. I love Nepal. Yeah, guys, I'd love to go back to Nepal. I've been there a couple of times now. I want to do the Annapurna Trail. I want to do that, and I might do Everest Base Camp. Won't do Everest. I'm not nearly mad enough to do Everest. So many people die. It's so dangerous. It's polluting the mountain. It's one of those things where tourism is a good thing up to a point, and it gets to a point where it becomes really bad. Albania at the moment is still great for tourism because it's kind of still untouched by tourism. Not that many tourists go there. Obviously, since Croatia is now part of the EU, that's opened up loads and beautiful beaches, Dubrovnik, and then you've got Montenegro, which is split away from Serbia in 2007, became its own country, and that's obviously got fantastic beaches as well. But then those beaches extend into Albania, which less people go to. It's cheap. It's cheap as chips as well. You can get by on just a few pound a day, to be honest with you. It depends how canny you are at busking and couch surfing. We have different words, not just accents. No, I mean we have different words as well in the UK, but different ways of saying things depending on where we're from. And then you've always got this thing where someone's trying to do an accent from somewhere else and it's never quite right. But then if you actually bother to listen to anyone's accent, they're not always consistent in their pronunciation of things, because you pick things up from all kinds of places. I find myself saying water incorrectly a lot of the time. And one of the things that you expect with someone from Liverpool is the ach noise, like fazachali, which I don't do because I don't like it. It sounds like you're hacking up a logie, and I don't like that. And even the slang logie is an Americanism. It's not Scouse. It's not Scouse. It's just not right. And the Liverpool accent has become more nasal. If you listen to anyone being interviewed in the 1960s, like the Beatles in the 60s, their accents sound more kind of Birmingham. There's kind of like, oh, we're the Beatles. We're just here to have a good time. Whereas as time has gone by, I blame Brookside, the accents become more high-pitched and nasal, where it's got to the point where it's kind of comedy. Hey, what are you talking about? Kind of Scouse accent, which isn't nice. Just take me to Ireland. I love the Irish accent. The Northern Irish accent, not so much, but the Irish accent, love it. Lots of languages and accents in India. Yeah, loads and loads of accents. Loads of languages in India. Obviously, I think language came from India. I know chess did. Fancy coming on the show this week? That's from Wayne. Wayne, I might do. It's on Thursday, isn't it? I'm kind of just packed to the gills. Like I've got so many things going on with this and Rejoin EU, and I'm trying to at the moment move a load of stuff across from different websites that I'm on. I just decided yesterday to make a redo of A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift, where we basically eat the elderly who are dying of COVID in a way to stave off Brexit starvation. So I just wasted hours on that last night because I just get into these things. I wouldn't mind coming on the show, so just give us a shout about that and remind me, because otherwise I'll forget. I've been to Everest Base Camp only on the Tibet side. That's kind of cool. That's very North End Liverpool. What the very nasal, is that very brutal? Just an example of different words in the UK. Cobs for cobs. What? Bum and Scouse accents are sometimes hard to separate. Yeah, Adrian, I mean, like, I find the Birmingham accent, I think it sounds really daft, but I do have to acknowledge it is quite close. If you watch Peaky Blinders, I'm like, are you supposed to be in Liverpool? Are you supposed to be in Birmingham? Where are you supposed to? Because the accent's kind of, and obviously Cillian Murphy is Irish, so I mean he's putting on the accent, but it does tend to sound a little bit too scouse now and again. Cosy Dofell Hill, yeah, I can hear the difference between Allerton and Wavertree. Bootle is totally different. So we have like different variations of dialect and accent within one city, which is kind of crazy. Liverpool is if you imagine it just like as a D shape, got the River Mersey on this side, and then the south of Liverpool is generally a bit posher, and the north of Liverpool is generally a bit more rough around the edges, let's just say. But you know, there's pockets of resistance all over the place. But generally speaking, yeah. But the North Liverpool I find more friendly, and South Liverpool is okay. And where I come from, West Derby, is kind of in the middle. So, it's east of the city centre. Eat the elderly in a saucy way. No, just eat them. Just eat them because they're made of food. It's like there was a pamphlet written by Jonathan Swift, who wrote Gulliver's Travels. Published in 1729 about how to alleviate the problem of poor children. We should eat the children. And it was this famously satirical pamphlet. So I've rewritten that, and I've done it in old language. And it will be online. Keep watching. Keep watching. I'll send you a link. But yeah, I go off in strange different directions sometimes. Peaky Blinders is a very mild accent. It is. But I guess that's because they are trying to appeal to an international market with that. If you have a too thick an accent, you're not going to sell it in America. You're just not. Lucrac 2000 says Albania is getting expensive for tourism as well, especially the Riviera. A nice apartment with the sea view was around €100 a night last time I went. Wow. A few years earlier, it was €50 a night. Still worth it. Wow, that's gone up a bit, but I'm sure with the advent of Airbnb and stuff like that, you could still find some really cool stuff. Gaz Riley says, I have from Wavertree, so I sound like one of the Beatles. Waymaker says, me mum, me nan and brother all live in Wallasey, over the water. Have you ever heard the Ian McNabb song called Mersey Beat? Great song. No, I haven't, but I'm sure it's pretty good. Anyway, look, let's talk about Albania some more, because I've only got another 13 minutes. I've been just going off on all these different things. So what else was I going to talk about? I was going to talk about the minibuses. I think they're called the Furgons. The Furgons, the minibuses that don't have timetables. You just turn up and you depart when they're full. Oh, one of the big things that everybody tells you about Albania, and if you read my book, Man of the World, plug, the Albania. Oh my God. I just literally opened it on this page and it's Greece, so I'm guessing Albania's on the next page. Oh, no. Macedonia, Kosovo, Montenegro, Serbia. Here we go. I've got around a lot of countries and there's, Albania. So in every country that I visit on the Odyssey expedition, I have a little country card that tells you a little bit. It's like a fact card about the country. It tells you the GDP per capita back in 2009 when I was traveling. And also, little Easter egg for you, anyone who's got the book. If the card is on the right side of the book, they drive on the right. If it's on the left side of the book, they drive of the page, they drive on the left. Albania's fact is Albanians shake their heads to say yes and nod to say no. So there you go. That is the famous sort of Albanian quirky fact that everyone loves to tell you, which is basically true. Yeah, so they shake their head to say yes and they nod their head to say no, which is really fun. Don't run late, you can never run late. What? I really want to go to Albania. Yeah, guys, let's do it. Well, I want to do another Odyssey expedition because I didn't do it properly the first time. Although it's going to be more difficult now because getting in and out of the United Kingdom isn't going to be as straightforward as it was last year or the year before. Or whenever. Talk a little bit about Albania. We'll talk about the flag here. The flag is the double-headed eagle, which is also featured on the flags or variants of it, featured on the flags of Montenegro and of Serbia. So that's sort of like a symbol of the area. The red symbolises blood, I guess. It always symbolises blood or courage. The area is, like I said earlier, it's mountainous. I think it's like nearly 3/4 mountainous, and then you've got sort of 25%, which is arable land, and they do actually make a lot of their own food because they were self-sufficient for a very long time, so people had to make their own food. Unlike in the UK, which has never been self-sufficient, I don't think ever in its history. It's like, but surely in 1707 it was self-sufficient. No, we were plundering all this gold from Spanish galleons. We were never self-sufficient. I spoke a little bit about how it's a beautiful country. I mean, just take the bunkers out of the equation for a moment, but you've got I'm going to say these places wrong now, and I feel really embarrassed. But Butrint, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and Berat, which is also really, really pretty. And one of the interesting things they have over there is they have scarecrows on buildings that are being built to ward off evil spirits. But as time has gone by, I guess people have just I guess back in the day, it was like, they would actually make a scarecrow out of straw, have straw sticking out of its arm, a little straw head, and maybe put eyes on it. But as time's gone on, they just haven't been asked anymore, so they just use a cuddly toy, and that's the scarecrow. But they hang it, like, literally, they hang it with a noose, and they hang it from so you're just driving along, and there's these, like, little cuddly toys that are all being hung, like, as a warning. Look out, cuddly toys, we're coming to get you, this is a warning. Just one of the weird things they have in Albania, which I always thought was quite cool. The big thing over there as well is that they take the evening walk, the evening constitutional. They take that very seriously. They've got a proper name for it, and it's a traditional cultural thing that they do. Every evening they go out for a walk, which I think is really cool and nice. One of the other things about the sort of the geography, the natural geography of Albania, and this is something that it shares with northern Greece. Because of the agricultural revolution that took place in most of Europe, didn't really take place there because obviously a lot of mountains, people couldn't really farm there, put nitrates into the ground, pesticides, fertilizer, all that kind of stuff. And along with sort of I'm going to say this wrong, Zagorhoria in northern Greece, near by Albania, you have the biggest selection of wildflowers in Europe. If you love wildflowers, if you get to Albania or northern Greece in spring, I really, really recommend it. I drove through the slate villages of northern Greece in spring a few years ago, and it was just incredible. Like, and it's like a window into a forgotten world because we don't see that anymore. You drive down the motorways of the United Kingdom, you see a field, it's just monoculture. I mean, it's just like one field of yellow, rapeseed, whatever, and then you've got another field and they're growing something else, or it's just green because there's sheep in it, or cows. You don't get that explosion of colour that you get in Albania. Another good reason to visit. And I want to pick the place up because I really like it, but then I like most places, so probably not the best person to ask. I'm like, very much, everything's brilliant. But I think it's one of those places, it's something for everyone. It is still fairly cheap. I mean, it's cheaper than Italy, cheaper than Montenegro, cheaper than Croatia. Go easy on the Raki, and the currency. I've probably got some Albanian currency in my currency table here. I should have checked out where it was. Although it's really hard if it's in the middle to try and take it out, but it's called the lek. Have I got any leks? I've got, you can't see this one because of the things in the way, but I've got a Tesla one here from, I'm gonna say Serbia because it's got Cyrillic on it. But I think he was born in what's now Croatia. That's Uruguay, that's Singapore, that's Somaliland, that's Indonesia. That one there. Can you actually see that? No, you can't really. That's Eritrea, and they've got kids on the, they've got children on the notes, which is really nice. Andorra next week. No, Gaz Riley, Andorra next week. I take that back. No, Alabama. No, not Alabama. That's not a country. Algeria is next. Algeria in northern Africa. You can be self-sufficient when you have that climate. Yeah, it's true, actually, Chubba. That's a really good point that you've made there. Climate is a huge thing, and the fact that we could get fruit and veg all through the year when we were members of the EU was because climate is down there, is warmer. We have frozen soil here, so it can't grow anything. It's frozen. The ground's frozen. Anyway, looking forward to Iceland and Japan. I love Iceland. Do you like cheese? Do you like peas? Now try cheesy peas. Well, what I'm hoping is maybe one day someone will watch this from the tourist board of whatever country I'm talking about next week, and they'll say, Graham, do you actually want to do it from the country? And I'll be like, yeah, It's like people go, oh, you didn't spend enough time in my country. People say this to me a lot. And I've got two responses usually. One is like, look, I raced through it on the Odyssey expedition to every country in the world, but I've been there before and I've been there since. A good example is Panama, where I literally walked across the border during the Odyssey expedition. Walked across the border. I didn't even get my passport stamped. Made sure that my GPS clicked. I got a photo of myself with the sign saying "Welcome to Panama," thumbs up. And then I walked back out. And people are like, oh, you didn't really get to experience Panama. And then I lived there for 3 years. So, fun fact, Albania. Cameron, the old legal code, covers blood feud, amongst other things. Hoxha, I'm saying it right now, Hoxha stopped it, but it came partly back in about 2014. About 3,000 families are involved in blood feuds. You think people have better thing to do with their time? Gaz says, okay, cool. I was just being alphabetical. What? No, alphabetical. You're giving me a crisis of confidence here. I'm pretty sure it's Afghanistan, Albania, and then Algeria. I'm pretty sure that's the way. Oh, God. Have I messed this up in the second episode? 65% women in Iceland. Bet you liked it. I loved Iceland. Not for the women. I mean, that's not... People ask me that, what are the most beautiful women in the world? And I give a different answer each time because, I don't know, women are beautiful everywhere. It's not like, there's one particular country where all the beautiful ones come from. Although, listen, no offense to Bolivia. No offense at all. Wonderful country. I will enthuse about Bolivia till the cows come home. However... word to the wise, if you, for hundreds of years, sacrifice the best-looking women to the mountain gods, and they have to be virgins when you put them up there to die of exposure, do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm getting at? Wink, wink. Okay, anyway, so moving on. Crete still had blood feuds. Oh, bloody blood feuds. I think I've got a blood feud against Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage. Can I have a blood feud? It sounds boss. Only joking. Have you mentioned the food there? No, HK, I haven't mentioned the food at all. Albanian food, again, it's really, really good food. It's very similar to Greek. The same sort of stuff that you would get in Kosovo and in northern Macedonia. So we're talking lots of kebabs, that kind of meat on a stick, and put it into a bit of flatbread and stuff like that is abundant. And obviously, olive oil is everywhere. I mean, it's got good food. It's got good food. They make a thing about it. And one of the things that I loved when I was there was that it was all really, really, really fresh. It was really, really fresh. Vegetables and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. I'm sure someone's going to tell me now the actual... point me to Bolivia. Wayne, I did not say that Bolivia have munters. That's not what I said at all. You're putting words in my mouth, you naughty man. That's Wayne in Basildon there. Oh, I don't know. Bolivia can be dangerous off the beaten path. It's cheap though. Yeah, but I think Bolivia is probably the most dangerous country I've been to. I would regard it as probably a little bit more dangerous than Papua New Guinea. I really would. But it's gleefully so. It's the land that health and safety forgot. But you're going to have to wait a few weeks until I get to the bees and then get to Bolivia. Have you been to Canvey Island? It's a different world. No, Wayne, I haven't. Hi from UK. I love Albania. It's one of my favourite countries I have visited so far. Gluten Free says, have you been to Macedonia? Yeah, I've been to Macedonia a few times. And I've been to, I'm going to say this wrong, Skopje, the capital. It's Skopje, isn't it? I've been to Skopje, the capital, and again, it's another beautiful, beautiful country. It's a beautiful part of the world, it really is. And the thing is, tourists become a problem if there's too many of them in one area. And what I'd like to see is more responsible tourism where people are traveling without flying. Europe has finally woken up to this, and they are putting on way more night sleeper trains, which are fantastic because you go to bed on the train, you wake up somewhere new. I'd rather do that a million times over than do it on a coach. And if we can get people to encourage people to go to places a little bit off the beaten track, and people say, "Oh, well, it's dangerous. It's blood feuds. The people are poor," and you're like, "Well, yeah, but." generally speaking, if someone means you harm in this life, it's someone that you know. And if anything does happen to a tourist from any other country, it'll be all over your news. It always is. And so it gives you this disproportionately dangerous view of the world. It's very dangerous because this terrible thing happened to them X many years ago. And those cases, they're one in a million. And thankfully, they're very few and far between. Did I hike Mount Dajti? No, I didn't. What was the first ever country you visited that was considered far? I guess I went to Syria and Lebanon when I was 20. That was the sort of furthest I'd been at that point. I mean, I've been to America, which is obviously further away in terms of miles, but in terms of culture and things like that, going to Lebanon, going to Syria was, and Egypt, very, very, very different to Jordan. Yeah, and then Australia. I've been to Australia loads of times. I used to have an Australian girlfriend. New Zealand is the furthest place that I went to before the Odyssey expedition in terms of being on the other side of the planet to the United Kingdom. Pretty much. So the first place I went, I'd say, the Middle East, Egypt. Taj Mahal was out of order with too many tourists, too many, most I've ever seen. Yeah, that's the thing, guys. If we can spread tourism out, some kind of rota system. There's so many beautiful places in the world. There's so many amazing UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and you can have them to yourself. The pyramids in Meroe in Sudan. I got the most amazing pictures of these pyramids because I was the only one there. Literally, I was the only one there in this huge bit of desert with all these little pyramids in it because there were all these tombs of these ancient Nubian kings. It was kind of really cool. Anyway, everyone's chipping in now. I lived in Melbourne for a bit as well. I lived in, where was it? Thornbury. Lived in Thornbury, north of Northcote. And I also lived in the east somewhere. I've forgotten the name. Anyway, right. I am going to call it a night, I think. Was I going to talk a little bit about Albania a bit more? Well, I'll end on a corporate note. So this is what Lonely Planet has to say. Well, it's the Lonely Planet website. It says Albania's stunning mountain scenery, crumbling castles, boisterous capital, and dreamy beaches rival any in the Mediterranean and continue to enchant. So there you go. That's not just me. There are all the people who think that Albania is a pretty cool place to go and visit and check out for yourself and play the game of Spot the Bunker because there's 750,000 of them dotted around the country. How would you score Prague? 11 out of 10. Goes all the way up to 11. I was in Northcote and St Kilda. Guys, we're going to have a conversation about this, mate. I made videos for the Northcote Music Festival when I was there. It was cool. I did a take on the good, the bad and the ugly. With the Melbourne Trams and two women band leaders dressed up in the old sort of Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club band uniforms, one with a saxophone and the other one with a trumpet. I'm going off on one. Just keep me to the beaten track, people. But yeah, I'm going to be back next week. Same time, same place, whatever you're watching this on, for another Hughes of the World, where we will be talking about Algeria in North Africa, which again it's one of those places like Afghanistan, like Albania, which is very much off the beaten track for traditional tourism. I would say out the three, Albania would be the place that I'd like to go back to the most. But that's not to say there's nothing to see or do in Algeria. And again, I had a good time there. So, until next time, 10 o'clock, Tuesday nights, Hughes of the World, going on as long as I have to. This could go on for 4 years because there is going to be like 200 countries to get through, and there's only 52 weeks in the year. Algeria is massive, yeah, but it's mostly deserts. It looks good on the map though, and it's the biggest country in Africa at the moment since Sudan split into two. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm back tomorrow morning. I'm back tomorrow afternoon for Hughes Round at 1 p.m. I'm also Going to be hosting the big Rejoiner chat on Zoom. If you want to find out more about that, subscribe to the rejoineu.uk newsletter on the website, and I will send you the Zoom link. And if you're just interested in travel, I will see you next week at 10 o'clock for the next edition of Hughes of the World. Until then, fair winds.